Good morning. Good morning and welcome. I think we get started in a few seconds, but just so you know, if you're coming in, if you don't find seats, there are some here as well. You're welcome to sit up front if you're eager. So welcome everyone to our first session of day 2 of the GSTC Global Conference. What an exciting day yesterday. I hope you had a lot of fun, lots of learning, lots of sharing, as well as lots of networking during the day. Do you want? There are some here too. So this is the start of day 2. As you know, I think today our schedule, depending on which one you sign up for, 3 museum, this one, Maritime Museum, Ethnography Museum, Technical Museum. So please go to the one that you sign up, check your schedule, go to the one you sign up for. That's what your QR code will tell you which one you can get in. And I think my introduction is and reminder is just that. Welcome. Let's have an amazing day, day 2 of the GSTC. And I would like to introduce you to Patrick Gustafsson, who's going to tell you about this museum where we're in, the Maritime Museum. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. And welcome to the Maritime Museum here in Stockholm, Sweden. Our entire name is the National Maritime Museum of Sweden. Usually just the Maritime Museum. We have a few here in Sweden, but the National Maritime Museum, you know, you're here. I'm the booking manager here at the museum, and I'm so honored to see this hall just packed of people. I think you're 95, if I'm correct, and it's very nice to see. Usually we have similar conferences here, usually with fewer delegates, but it's nice to have you here. Today, I'm going to talk a bit about the practical information for you, and I'm also going to give you a small tidbit about the museum. First, the practical information. During your day, you will have some coffee breaks and a lunch break. The coffee and lunch is served in our large memorial hall, straight ahead from the entrance. If you have any questions, just ask your hosts, but my staff will also help you, of course. We also have, of course, a voice-guided emergency system in this museum. If the speakers above your head start saying that you're going to leave the museum, just pick your stuff up and leave, okay? You have the emergency exits in that direction. That's the closest one. And you also have an emergency exit out that door and through behind the elevator. We also have a defibrillator if you're going to need it, if you have to need it. It's in the entrance. So just that direction. And if you need that, run, okay? So you run in that direction, up the stairs, and you pick up the defibrillator in the entrance. So I think that's the practical information. Now to the museum. And I have to remember to breathe. Yeah, I've done this a few times. I always forget that. The museum, which you are in today, is the Maritime Museum. It was inaugurated and built in 1938, so it's quite old. It was the first maritime museum here in Sweden, and it is also home to an amazing collection of about 5,000 ship models. You can't see all of them in the museum, but we have about 500 on exhibit here in the museum. And during your breaks here today, you are welcome to wander about the museum and watch them. And we have several other exhibitions as well. The Escape from the Baltic, for example, is about during World War II, we have a lot of refugees coming from the Baltic states over to Sweden. In small boats, whatever they could find, and that exhibition is an amazing story about their escape from the Baltics. We do a lot of other stuff as a museum, as a government agency. Sustainability, for example, I have understood it's important to you. We work, for example, with a lot of volunteer associations to make our living heritage, our museum ships, for example, sustainable, to make it possible to use them as they were intended to be used, with bio-friendly fuels, for example. We have a large fleet of museum ships connected to the museum, which the museum owns, but is used and partakes in different events around Sweden with volunteer associations. We also have bareboat charter deals with them, so they can take on passengers and drive these boats around the coasts and in Stockholm, for example. You can see some of them in and behind the Vasa Museum in the harbor. For example, our large icebreaker, St. Erik. You can't walk on board her at the moment; it's closed for the season, but you can watch her lying there in the harbor. And we have tried to convert her to be more bio-friendly. It's a coal-fired ship originally, and today we use biodiesel to make her run, and she is still possible to be run. She's from 1915. So, I see my time is out, and I would wish to welcome you again to the Maritime Museum. And of course, I want to introduce you to your today's moderator, Rachel McCaffery, Sustainability Lead at VisitEngland. Welcome.
I think I've got this. Thank you very much. I was wondering where to put myself. I think I'm going to kind of hide behind this table so you can see the slides okay. That sounds very loud to me. Is it okay for you? Thumbs up? Yeah, it's okay? Good. Okay. So, we are going to talk today about destination stewardship and the guest experience. And we've got a really distinguished and really interesting panel for you. We've got Wolfgang from IDM, the marketing director from IDM. We've got Annika from who's the CEO of Swedish Lapland at a DMO perspective. We've got Adige, who's come all the way from Indonesia. She's managing director of Via Tours, and we have Lennart, who is the founder and owner of Sápmi Nature Camp, so tourism entrepreneur from the Sápmi community, and also representing the organisation WINTA. So we're going to look at some of the different structures used to reach stakeholders, and also look at the social sustainability of tourism and how that links in to the guest experience. So I'm going to talk to you first about VisitEngland. I've only been in this role, I've been working in sustainable tourism for too many years to count now, really. But I only started working for a national tourism organisation a year ago, so I'm fairly new to this space. But one of the first things that we wanted to do was put in a framework, an approach of the way that we approach sustainability in England. So I'm going to talk you through some of that. Sorry, I'm getting confused by using the technology. That's better. Yeah, so talk you through our approach. VisitEngland is adopting a regenerative tourism approach. So many of you will be familiar with that terminology, but if you're not, if you think of sustainable tourism as being not causing any more damage, kind of maintaining the status quo, keeping things as they are, then a regenerative approach is tourism that aims to leave a place better than it was before. So our aim in England is for positive transformation for people and places. And as I say, we didn't really have an approach, a framework before, so we aligned our approach with things like the Sustainable Development Goals, the GSTC criteria, the 3 pillars of sustainability, other key frameworks and national targets like our own government's net zero goals, and came up with this regenerative tourism framework. And that has 4 aspects, or 4 pathways, if you like. People, place, partnerships and prosperity, and people is about ensuring that communities benefit from tourism. It's also about celebrating our cultural heritage, enabling access for all, making it easier for visitors to make sustainable choices and understand how to behave responsibly on holiday. Place is our environmental pathway. That's about looking after our places in line with our government net zero, climate and nature recovery targets, while also championing responsible use of resources and minimising waste. And then partnership, super important, really emphasising the importance of collaboration to achieve collective goals and improving recognition of good practice by, for example, cutting through the fragmented certifications landscape, which is something I'm working on at the moment. And prosperity, supporting the sustainable growth of small businesses in tourism, encouraging the development of high-quality year-round jobs, building skills, and something I think that's underestimated, actually, the impact that tourism can have in supporting growth in the green economy and the blue economy. So our next steps, we are at the moment developing a visitor economy strategy for England based on this 4Ps framework, and that's currently in consultation with different stakeholder groups. We are running consultations right through the year and launching in 2025, so that piece of work will probably be a 2-year piece of work by the time it launches. And there have been structural changes in tourism in England, which I'll come on to talk about in a minute, which have really maximised the opportunity to drive the regenerative tourism agenda in England and help me connect with the destinations. And that's our local visitor economy partnership programme, or the LVET programme. This is a bit of a complicated diagram. You don't need to worry too much about this, but we had a very fragmented landscape in England with something like 400 different DMOs. And it was just getting kind of overcomplicated and difficult when it came to communicating with them all, with funding, difficult for them all to be heard. So a review was undertaken called the Dubois Review, and that recommended consolidation of DMOs into larger organisations. And so now, rather than having 400 DMOs, we have, I'll show you the map, we have 33 different LVETs, or local visitor economy partnerships, where a collection of DMOs have been brought together under one bigger organisation. So in some areas we have maybe 3 DMOs, sometimes 4 DMOs. You can imagine that was quite a delicate process to negotiate, to bring them together, to work together, agree a lead, and manage destination management and promotion in a particular area, quite a large area in some of the cases. But actually, it really makes it much easier for then the NGO to engage with those destinations at local level, and we've got strong champions in each of those areas that we can channel messaging through, and it also makes it easier for them to be heard and for tourism collectively as a voice to be heard, because in England we're about 11% of the economy, so we're not the majority of the economy. It's we have to really show the positive impacts that tourism can bring. Going back to that other slide, you can see how this structure really directly connects with the visitors, and the idea is that through changing this destination landscape and having this consolidation and a much smaller group of destination management organisations, it leads to eventually to a better experience for visitors. So, what we're doing under this new structure is really aligning and amplifying good practice, building understanding of regenerative tourism. And as I say, rather than 400 different organisations to communicate to, I now have 33, or it will be about 40 or so in time. We're also, it's much easier for getting broad alignment on the things like the framework and our approach. Now, we're not prescriptive in England. We don't have kind of legislative control on the DMOs. We can only encourage them in a particular direction. But if there's nothing there to encourage them to follow, then they're all going to go in different directions. Hence our framework. They don't have to follow it, but it's informative, and I think many of them are already finding it quite useful. We're also sharing knowledge and disseminating tools. And the awareness of sustainability ranges from those who are, outstanding environmentally and socially, and others who are I don't know what this is all about. I don't know how to deal with it. So we have to produce a wide range of tools and training. And we're really also, and I'm interested to talk to others, and I'm very interested in the data session later, increasingly looking at how we can standardise the measurement of tourism's impact. And we're already in some conversations with how we can measure our level of engagement with certifications, for example, in the different visitor economy partnerships. So the aim is ultimately for a better visitor experience that really do have a measurable positive impact on people and places. So, thank you. That's my presentation. So I'd like to invite Wolfgang from Adige, which is a development organisation in the South Tyrol, to come to the stage and take over.
My name is Wolfgang, Director of Marketing and responsible for the tourism sector in South Tyrol. Does anybody know South Tyrol? Hands up. Oh, wow. Thank you. Didn't think that we are a bit popular. What is South Tyrol about? South Tyrol, the tourism, we are 500,000 inhabitants, so we are a quite small region in the north of Italy. We are maybe quite famous because you can have the UNESCO World Heritage, the Dolomites, and with a 20 minutes drive, you have palm trees. So we are alpine Mediterranean. We have 8.4 million arrivals a year, so this is quite a lot if you compare it to the inhabitants. And we have 36 million overnight stays. So you see, if you're a bit into numbers, there's a bit of a pressure, I would say, on the population with tourism. And we have 11,700 accommodation facilities. South Tyrol is not only known for its tourism products, but also that there are also other industries that are quite successful. Every fourth organic apple in Europe comes from South Tyrol. Every second yogurt in Italy comes from South Tyrol. We have the highest density in Michelin-starred restaurants in Italy. We had the first green star, so green Michelin star in the world. When I came here, I saw the charging stations for your cars, the Alpitronic, our technology. And if you're skiing, probability is higher than 50% that you're skiing on our technical snow. So we have the Techno-Alpine. We have world leaders in our region. I don't say this because I want to position South Tyrol. All this creates problems, and we'll see what it has to do with tourism. So our company is a development company. We're not just organized around tourism, but we are doing brand communications, sector development in tourism, in trade, in craft, and in different industries. And we are developing the markets for these industries. And important is the vision South Tyrol, the most desirable, sustainable habitat in Europe. Not the most sustainable, because if you're quite successful, you have a hard time to be really sustainable. I think Sweden has bigger chances to be really sustainable, but we are doing a lot to transform this business in the next area. The important thing is to be desirable. You not only have to have a beautiful landscape and good products and good cuisine, but you also, in tourism we have to do with people, right? 44% of our guests say they are coming and returning because of the people, because the people are so nice. So we are not only talking about tourism, but people work in different sectors, and they all have to be nice and welcoming and warm-hearted to the tourists, right? And this is an important thing we see later on. Our sustainability labels, we have 3 of them. The highest standard, of course, the GSTC standard. We customized it, so it's GSTC recognized, and we have 2 onboarding standards, 1 and 2, below. Why did we choose GSTC? GSTC, of course, is the highest standard in the world, recognized by the United Nations, so this is important to us. We customized it so GSTC recognized because we thought there would be a higher acceptance in the destination if we work on it together, not just taking a standard, a world standard, and applying it, but elaborating it together. And specific to South Tyrol, we have some assets we wanted to integrate. So, for example, the audit, family, and work. We are a legal minority. As you might hear, I'm not Italian speaking. My family was part of Austria. We have been shifted as a region after World War II to Italy. So we are a minority in Italy. We are Italians, we are Germans, and we are Rätoromans. So we have to protect these minorities. Then we have the green event standards. We have our own gas pass. We wanted to integrate our agricultural products in the standard. So it's mandatory on level 3 that you buy milk, wine, apples and stuff from our region. You can't buy milk from Austria or from somewhere in the world. We have to buy it in our region. So that's why we customized it and we opted for the GSTC recognized. Of course, in the background we have a lot of stewardship programs. Don't want to dive in. It's just that you see it. We can deep dive later on. The important thing is now we come to the problem of our success. 2020, 23% of our inhabitants said, do it a bit slowly, right? It's okay, but go slowly. 2023, 44% after Corona, right? They said, go slow, you guys. It's enough. We are not in a situation like Barcelona or Venice where people say tourists go out. So we're far from it. But people give us their signals and they are pretty clear. And where are the problems? You see on the right side, the impact on environment and nature, mobility and traffic, and housing and settlement are the main root causes for the lowering acceptance. If you see this, you notice these are not tourism, not only tourism problems. We have, for example, we doubled our economic success within the last 20 years. We doubled it. So all the other sectors, that's why I mentioned it, are quite successful. This brings us to the situation that we measured it, in the lowest season, November, where there's quite no tourism in South Tyrol. We have 2/3 of the traffic loads on the streets we have in peak season, 2/3. We are, after Denmark, the second region in Europe when it comes to owned cars. We have, I think it's 628 cars per 1,000 inhabitants. This is nuts, right? But what do people with their cars? They go to work in different sectors. So we're all part of this family. It's not just tourism. And that's why we said we can't only work with the tourism sector, but we have to extend our standard to all the other sectors. That's why we bring our standard to the small and medium-sized businesses. We started 2 months ago. We are going to roll it out within the next months and years. And the second thing is that we have a quite desired brand. So a lot of companies in South Tyrol apply our brand and are proud of that brand. This brand is our identity. The sustainability label, not yet. This is our identity. So that's why we integrated sustainability as one of the pillars. And the brand criteria, you'll see, we have tourism, agriculture, and all the other sectors as well. So we are expanding the tourism standard, the sustainability efforts to all the other sectors, so that across the companies and the teams working in the companies across all sectors, bear in mind we are all responsible for it, and we have to make our contributions so that we become maybe someday the most desirable habitat in Europe. That means people should say, I could imagine living here, not just being a tourism destination. So that was it. Thank you for your attention. See you later.
Next we have Annika, CEO of Swedish Lapland, BMO. Thank you, Annika.
Thank you, GSTC, for having the opportunity to be here today. I'm going to talk a bit about Sweden's Arctic destination and what we are doing there or here. Sweden's Arctic destination is the northernmost region of Sweden, and it's also part of the European, the Arctic Europe. We are also the only Swedish region that has land border connecting to our neighboring countries, Finland and Norway. It makes us a bit in the heritage multicultural region. We are approximately 250,000 people, and we are living on a quarter of the surface of Sweden. This area is bigger than Austria. You heard yesterday the former Prime Minister Fredriksson referring to our destination yesterday. We think it's a magical place, of course, where the sun never sets during summer, and in winter the white snow and the light phenomenon on the polar sky illuminate both days and nights. It's a place with 8 seasons. We are also a core area for our Arctic indigenous people, the Sápmi, and also a part of the traditional land, Sápmi, which stretches across northern Norway, Sweden, and northern Finland, and also a part of Russia. In our organization, we are all responsible for the sustainability work. And therefore, I think it was 2 years ago in Sevilla, we had you as a teacher when we did this training course, all staff, and it was really good. And we were then working with this thing that I'm going to present here. This, care for the Arctic, it's our home. What is this? The starting point was the insight and perspective that we are not only a world-unique Arctic travel destination, this is also our home. And this place we want to protect and make even better. It's according to the regenerative idea. This is not only for us who live here now, but it's, of course, also for the future generations, both of residents, but also the next generation of visitors. Care for the Arctic is an Arctic agenda with a toolbox, and it's for a more responsible travel destination. It's a holistic, regenerative approach and also enabler for shared responsibility regarding destination stewardship in the joint work in meeting, of course, the challenges that we are facing both locally and also globally. But it's also, as we wanted to work as a also tool for taking advantage to use creativity and innovation for creating new values and business opportunities in tourism. Our approach is not just about words, it's about actions. The method is inclusive, and we want to empower all the people at the place and also the visitors to contribute, to drive and lead the change processes that's necessary to head towards the Agenda 2030. This proactive stance, we think, we're just in the beginning of this, we wanted to inspire us to make a difference and, of course, contribute to a positive transformation. We consider also this Care for the Arctic as a social innovation. It's propelled by responsible hospitality companies and responsible travelers and responsible public actors. The agenda is, of course, a part of the county of Norrbotten's tourism strategy and the strategic roadmap towards 2030. And it's also linked to the EU's tourist transition plan, and also, of course, it is linked to the GSTC 4 pillars. With joint forces, we think a positive change can be made in the direction of the vision. And the vision is to become the most responsible Arctic destination in the world. And the goal is also to make it easy for the responsible traveler to visit our Arctic destination, and also make informed choices and actively contribute to sustainable local development. That's really important. I think also the destination's commitment to sustainable development enhances also its own attractiveness and contributes also to the overall appeal of the place, to live, work and visit. And of course, spreading a sense of pride among, and motivation, of course, among all the stakeholders. And as you said, Wolfgang, I think, and you also, I think we are in a pretty much the same position, and it's really interesting to hear. So we feel really connected to different kind of, both countries and different kind of regions in this work, and it feels really great. The toolbox contains of several advices for the key stakeholders. And I just want to, this is in Swedish, and of course you can find out more at our webpage, SwedishLapland.com, and also SwedishLapland.com, SwedishLaplandVisitorsBoard.com and SwedishLapland.com. And I just want to end up with some kind of best pieces of advice to you all. Be the change. Focus on making meaning, not marketing. And sustainability is not a trend. It's a shared responsibility. Thank you.
Really interesting to hear how such different places are really building their own approaches, but based on the same principles and making them really work for their destinations. I'd like to invite to the stage now, all the way from Indonesia, we have Sri, also known as Uji. Are you coming up? So where is Sri? Sorry, here. Sorry about that. I have to keep my stronger glasses on. Also known as Uji, and Sri is a community tour operator called Via Via Tour. And take it away, Uji.
Thank you, Rachel. I know I'm the smallest in this room, so I hope that everyone can see me. Indeed, I came to here all the way 22 hours from Indonesia, this is my first time to be in Scandinavia, and it is very, very, very warm, welcoming with the weather. Normally, I have minimum 28 degree until 32 degree. Yeah, which is, wow, in here is very, very warm. And this morning, I got a morning surprise with the rain. Another surprise also. So, yeah. Okay, so let me introduce myself. I'm Sri Mujiati. It is quite a Hindu Javanese name actually, but I'm a Muslim. I'm happy Muslim. Sometimes I drink wine to warm my body. Yeah. Okay, so I already since yesterday learned about the destination, stewardship, and all the criteria in the GSTC. And I am the one who really close actually to the guests, because I am tour operator and I started my career to be a tour guide at that time. In 2003, I started to work in Via Via, and then since then, I already got a special introduction about sustainability or sustainable tourism, which is actually it's brought all the way to Indonesia, yeah, from European mindset at that time. Because on the other hand, we actually in Indonesia, or especially in Java, the place where I live, we already have everything actually. We implement it. But then, because of the movement itself, it's quite fast. And then, you know, Indonesia with 280 million people populations, and then with 700 language and more than 13,000 ethnics, it's so complicated. So bloody complicated. So, but then I started also in 2006 to get to know to the community, because at that time in Yogyakarta, the province where I live, we got a big disaster with the earthquake, and then more than 10,000 people passed away at that time. So that it is quite challenging to bring back. No, not really to bring back, because tourism is not our main things at that time. But it's more like how to bring the people back to the life. Yeah. You know that Yogyakarta, the province where I live, it's very well known with the Borobudur and Prambanan temple. So any one of you ever been to one of the temple? Okay, so, oh yeah, okay, good then. I'm happy for that. So, thank you very much. But then, you know, other than that temples, actually, what should we do? Yeah, we also think about it is not only Borobudur and the Prambanan temples, but how the tourism can influence or can give a positive impact to the people itself, to the local community. So that's, and again, Indonesia is not only Bali. So we have 34 provinces, and then at that time our big homework is we would to involve the locals to in the activities of tourism itself, especially after the earthquake. So that we start to get the you know. To approach the community, and this is the community where it's about an hour from the city actually. We start to approach the people, the local people in the village, because we try to introduce tourism. What can we do actually with the tourism? Because in the place where I live, tourist is like, when everybody see a tourist, it's like a ATM. It's like a money. Oh, we can get so many things from them. Yeah, so we have to get a lot of money. Meanwhile, the sustainable tourism itself is about the fair price, so that we get in touch with them, we make a consensus, we do a musawarah, we call it, and then we make a commitment, who is doing what, and then when, and how, and then after that, we go into the actions. After that, we gather with all the stakeholders, local ones, and in a Javanese way, of course, and then after that, we try to do a trials. Yeah, this is what we do with the tour itself around the villages, and then after that we give a training. So the training itself is about the intercultural communications, because it's about Western and Eastern. It's quite far. It's a big gap. And then from that we make evaluations, and then from the trainings and then from the trials, then we have these activities, which is its daily Javanese activities, because we would like to keep them on track. It's not tourism itself is giving money, but then through the daily life of the Javanese, they will get extra bonus with the tourism. Yeah, so they still do their daily life. From this one, I can say that this is all less effort in a way of the tourism activities, because it's their daily life. Yeah, so we do not set up anything. And by doing this experience, the guests, they also get the value. They experience themselves to be a Javanese, how we live in the village. And then you see, with these activities, we also did planting the plants, and then we eat there also the same as they eat. Yeah. So from my point of view, actually, this street thing is very challenging, because to be a tour operator, we really have to be persistent, consistent, of course, and then commitment, which is sometimes, with the villager. It is very easy to manage our company, but it is not easy to, to manage the community. We really have to get to know them, to approach them, and then we ease all the gap between us. We do not want to make them object, but they are a subject too. So I think this is all my presentation. Thank you very much. Matur nuwun.
Thank you so much, Sri, and fantastic to hear about the structures at national and regional level, right down to the grassroots there. And I wanted to remind you, we are using Slido for this session, so do put in your questions on Slido. We may also go off-piste and have some questions from the audience, as we're in a nice kind of intimate group here. But without further ado, let me introduce our last speaker, who, helpfully for me and my not very good glasses, has come to the stage. So this is Lennart from the owner and founder of Sápmi Nature Camp.
Thank you. Thank you, GSTC, for the invite to be able to present here. I'm not sure if there will be a second one. We'll see afterwards. I have heard a lot of comments about weather and the surprise of the cold weather. I have no idea what you talk about. So my name is Lennart Pittja. I'm a Sámi, born and raised in Unnacheros Sámi community up in the north part of Sweden. How many of you know anything about Sápmi? Yeah, we still have some work to do. Annika did a little part on your presentation. I will do a little bit more. I've been working in Sámi tourism since 1995, and how I can still be just 39, I have no idea. But we're deep frozen big part of the year, so that's probably why. I believe that sustainable tourism is a force for good. It's a force for good and helps create opportunities for me and other indigenous peoples to share our stories, to protect nature and biodiversity if the tourism is done right. It's an opportunity to create and help build the local economy and serve as an alternative to short-term mining projects and deforestation. So I still believe in tourism, but I think that tourism needs to do better. I'm a founding partner of WINTA, World Indigenous Tourism Alliance, and I'm also part of the leadership council there. I just returned from Taiwan, where we just held the third World Indigenous Tourism Summit, and we gathered some 700 tourism professionals, indigenous community leaders, all with the same goal of offering more indigenous experiences and culture to the world. Fantastic week. Let's travel north. Let's travel up to my little camp. I run a small camp in nature, a very small scale place. I only have 5 rooms. So we would have to split this group quite a few times to be able to accommodate you. I need to do it in a small scale because it's my responsibility not to cause any problems for the reindeer when I'm hosting people here. That's my starting point. At Sápmi Nature Camp, I host guests from all over the world who are looking to learn more about Sápmi and spend time in nature, hosted by a Sámi person on the land where our culture has thrived for at least 7,000 years. But our culture is also threatened. If we don't have grazing land for the reindeer, we will not be. Mining, deforestation, windmills, tourism resorts are all established on our land. Every single investment in these industries destroys nature and makes it more difficult for the reindeer and other species, of course, and also people. The Northern Sweden Chamber of Commerce expects there will be investment in the north part of Sweden up to 140 billion US dollars up to the year 2040. They even call this green, but I suspect that not a single dollar will be invested in protecting nature. So I run this camp in nature. Small scale, educational and learning experience is always a hosted stage because that's the way that I can share the knowledge. But it's also the way that I can take responsibility for not damaging our environment. Located in UNESCO World Heritage Area in a nature reserve called Sápmi. We are on the land of the reindeer in Unnacherush Sámi community. And my tourism must never cause problem for the reindeer. Sápmi Nature is leading the way for my guests to learn more about the indigenous Sámi life above the Arctic Circle. My Sámi experiences creates understanding and respect for this land and the reindeer. It honors the ancestors and also the reindeer herders working so hard to protect this nature today. Indigenous values enhances the well-being for all of us. How come indigenous tourism is so marginalized in the tourism industry? What are we doing wrong when the oldest cultures on earth are presented using simplification and boring stereotypes? What are we doing wrong when there are so few indigenous voices heard? And that also includes this conference. Indigenous peoples, we are the custodians of nature all over the world. And if you don't remember anything else from my 8 minutes, I want you to remember this. You will find 80% of the biodiversity on Earth on the land of traditional peoples. 80. The conclusion for me is very obvious. Indigenous peoples and communities must be involved as equal partners in our common work to protect nature and culture on Earth. But why are indigenous people still not involved in a better and bigger way? I have no idea. I'm just raising the questions. Something is wrong. Responsible travelers in the world are eagerly looking for the authentic, the transformative experiences. They're looking to learn more about nature. And the indigenous peoples in the world have knowledge. We have an immense knowledge about the places where we live. Still, lots of the experiences are very stereotypical, in my opinion. That needs to change. Indigenous people's rights are human rights, and that's something that we need more of in this world. The tourism industry are also investing heavily in growth, in more profits. Is it really more hotel rooms that we need? At the same time, global warming and loss of biodiversity are, fact. So we need to do better. I think it's time to invest in indigenous-led development projects that will create local economy, will protect nature, but will also protect and create local jobs that will be sustainable for a long time. The figures on the screen are red. What does that mean? Is that my time is out? Okay, final word. You can go into a website called WINTA.org to learn more about the work that's going on around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lennart. And with that, I'd like to invite our panel members to come to the stage for the discussion part of the session. Come and take a seat. And while they're getting comfortable, it might be just perhaps my own curiosity to get a sense of who we've got in the room. How many people here are from a national tourist organisation? Can you put your hand up if you're from an NTO? A few people over there. How many people from a DMO? Great, good chunk of you. How many people from another kind of business? And how many people just came in off the street to get warm? A couple of people at the back. Okay, great. So as I say, we are using Slido, but we'll also potentially take some questions from the floor as well. But before we start, I have a question, and it was really based off those pie charts that Wolfgang showed about tourists. Acceptability for tourism, local resident acceptability for tourism, tolerance of tourism, and how that changed between 2020 and 2023. Some of that might be down to the fact that they were quite weird years because of the pandemic, and a lot of destinations suddenly got a big influx of tourism from all that pent-up demand. But it does raise an interesting question that I think is relevant for all the panelists. How do we really involve communities in decision-making and in planning the tourism that they want, so we don't get those graphs that show people aren't happy or don't get the protests? Lennart, would you like to start with an answer for that? How do you work with the community members to plan the tourism that you do?
Well, for me, it's easy to answer. Talk to us. Get involved. Learn about our cultures, our traditions. A lot of times, Indigenous peoples are invited to meetings, but they are the only ones sitting at the meeting without any paycheck that day. So we also need to invest in the development. Super important.
That's a really important point, actually, isn't it? And Shri, actually, Uji, when we were talking yesterday, you made a point about the fact that, for community members, I have to wait till the end of the day, to wait till 6 o'clock. And, at that time, people are often tired. It's not necessarily what they want to do is participate in a meeting. But would you like to say a bit more about that and how you involve community members?
Yeah. So for my case, as a tour operator, I came to them. I came to the village, and then like what you said, indeed, because they are all farmers and also some informal workers, so that we have to make agreement first. When do we have to come to the community? And then normally it's after 6 p.m. It is also not easy because it's like the end of the day, all the brain is already with all the activities during that day. But then I think as far as we already make a commitment before, and then as a penetration at that time, my first coming to the community itself, we try to make, what are we going to do with the tourism? What do you want us as a tour operator to develop this place like that, so that we share also video about the sustainable tourism, and then also the impact of tourism itself. And then they already declare that with tourism, we would like to be more, having mutual cooperations, working together. And then at that time, they promise us not about the money, but about to share their life, their culture, and meanwhile, of course, keeping the traditions and also the environments. Meanwhile, they get extra income from the tourism. So those kind of things, we really have to make agreements in advance, and then we really have this commitment, and it's very good, and it's doing well. Yeah, only, of course, we really have to spare time after the working days, or even like in the weekends like that. It depends on them, and we follow them. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks very much. Wolfgang, what do you think about that? Do you directly involve community members in planning in South Tyrol?
Yes, we have several programs, of course. But maybe one important new thing is we found out, we did with the German Future Institute, das Deutsche Zukunftsinstitut. We did a pattern analysis. So we involved 300 stakeholders from 20 different sectors, men and women, young and old and stuff. And we found out in this pattern analysis that people in South Tyrol are pretty proud of what they crafted within the last 70 years, so after the World War, right? And sustainability is something you have to do. Boring, right? Yeah. And that's why we try. You saw our sustainability logos, right? I think they are pretty nice. They are beautiful, and people are proud on their brand. That's why we're integrating the brand. So we try to establish new. We try to sell it. You are one of the new pioneers. 70 years ago, if your family has been a pioneer, now you are the pioneer to make this next step. And by selling this in different programs, making sustainability beautiful, acting on the brand, on the identity, doing innovation programs, you're an innovator, right? This way we are We are more successful than just involving people and telling them, you have to do it.
And Annika, your organisation is really all about community support, isn't it? And community involvement.
Yes, and I think that we can see that a lot of the small-scale companies on the countryside is really drivers for this kind of regenerative contribution and also the sustainable development, because they are experts in involving the local stakeholders into both their business, but becoming, sub-suppliers of local cultural heritage, living heritage, different kind of, as you were showing, the brand promises in our region is welcome to share our Arctic lifestyle. It's like, become a part of the everyday life in the Arctic. So, of course, they are the people in the Arctic, so they are, could be, or should be, and have the possibility to be, like also a part of the deliverance and also part of the business, contributing to the growth of the local economy. So the best practices, I would say, is in the countryside.
Well, I think that reiterates your point, doesn't it, Lennart, about the importance of hearing the voice of Indigenous communities and really not just token involvement, but involving in the decision making, creating funded projects, so that, as you say, the only person who's not earning a dollar from being at a meeting is the community member who's maybe coming at the end of a long day of work. And that was a really striking point, about 80% of the world's biodiversity being in lands owned and managed by Indigenous communities. We have to, if we want to survive as humanity, we have to listen to those voices and involve them in the decision making as we go forward, don't we?
But we have to start. I think that there is an acknowledgement that it has to be done. We have to do it. Let's stop talking about it. Just do it. Everyone can be part of that change. It's really, really important, and it needs to be done now.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, let's turn to this question that's number one on Slido at the moment from Ayako, and that's really about whether the Indigenous values and way of life can coexist with the expected green tech boom in the Arctic region. Can tourism somehow be part of the solution? Annika, perhaps I can address that question to you first of all.
Simple question.
Well, there's a lot there, isn't there?
We have to succeed with the balance. That's the recipe. Because if the traditional the traditional industry take over, our region will be like a fly-in, fly-out part of the world. So, for being a region where people want to live their lives, it has to be balanced. It can't be neither we have to coexist, and we are all responsible for making it happen. In our region, as I said, we're not so many people, and the big issue for all of the businesses and also for the welfare jobs, of course the service sector you're really familiar with, is the lack of laborers. And you're not attracting people moving in to an industrial site. So the traditional industries, they are also depending on us as an attractive place for visitors. So, complicated answer, but the tourism is a part of the solution. So, but we also have to deal with this decarbonizing of the steel and mining production. So we have to go hand in hand. but the key word is balance.
I think we also have to recognise the carbon emissions that are associated with the green tech boom as well. But it's not often talked about, the emissions from digital, but they are considerable and expected to grow. And I think it's very easy for those of us who don't know too much about technology to just go, oh yeah, that's great, the whole big tech thing over there, but without really thinking about the emissions. Whereas the emissions from aircraft, for example, because they're so visible, you literally see them coming out of the plane, are really kind of heavily, the finger is pointed. Not that they're insignificant. Did you want to say anything about green tech, or shall we move on to the next question?
No, just a very short comment.
Sure.
Just because people want the narrative to be according to a green, it doesn't mean that it is green.
Yeah.
That's the only comment that I make.
That's a sensible point. And also to emphasise, I think that obviously tourism has a role to play in some of the solutions, because it's unlike a lot of green tech, can enhance traditions and culture and show visitors a different way of life. The next question is one for me, which I can answer quite quickly. It's about how Visit England ensures that our local visitor economy partnerships are shifting focus from traditional marketing to sustainable and regenerative tourism development. And that's something I should have covered in the presentation, because to become an LVEP, a local visitor economy partnership, it's an application process, and the DMOs have to come together, show that financially that they can do it, and there's all different kinds of financial structures for DMOs in England, but show that financially that they can manage, that they're a proper financial entity, legally registered, but also they have to show their sustainability activity and also their accessibility. What they've done for accessibility. They have to show that they have some work being undertaken on these areas to get that LVEP accreditation. And then once they've got that, we work with them on a growth plan. And that growth plan includes sustainability and regenerative tourism. Now, it's still in quite an early stage, because this new structure only came into force a year ago. So the focus has been on getting the new visitor economy partnerships agreed and signed up. And the work in the next year is really going to be on kind of standardisation of that sustainability planning, hopefully using that framework. Although, as I said, some LVEPs are already underway using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a framework, or the GSTC or Green Destinations criteria, but other things. So hopefully that answers your question. And we're also, as I say, increasingly looking at measurement to be able to show progress in that area. Our next question is to Lennart from Sarah Walter. The Sápmi Parliament in Finland is working on responsible Sápmi tourism, and Norway adopted it in their agenda. Are there similar agendas in Sweden? That's an interesting question there.
The quick answer is no. And I think this shows a lot of the challenge in Sápmi is that we are one people, but we live in 4 different nations. So we need to negotiate a lot of times. We need to be able to find funding from a lot of different resources, national systems. It is a mess, and there is no agenda like this going on the Swedish side, unfortunately.
That's something you're arguing for, presumably.
Yes, I've done so for 29 years. I'm not succeeding very well.
No,
but maybe from tomorrow onwards.
I know it's the same with many indigenous communities around the world, isn't it? Wolfgang, you wanted to say something?
Question. Seen from the south, we are so we see always the Nordics, right? You are marketing the Nordics in the world, right? So the platform the Nordics is not doing anything about this. No.
Now we have a regional DMO that is doing a lot of good things for Sápmi, but there is no gathered initiative together with the Sámi tourism in the other countries.
And a question from Karen Edwards for Uji, which is really about the percentage of income from tourism that the local community benefit from. Are you able to break it down into percentages? That's quite specific, but you may be able to say something about how the community benefit.
Yeah. So I think it's quite challenging actually, because in Yogyakarta we have so many tour operators also, and then sustainable tourism is just new trends for some tour operators. I cannot say that for us, for Via, we contribute our profit to the project in the village for almost the tour development that we developed. It is come from our own financial. So normally we have like 5% from the profit. It goes back to the community, and then it depends on which community we work with. And then it's sometimes it also has a different percentage, and then sometimes it is also like we give them the soft skills, like the guiding skills and also the intercultural training as a part of the capital. So it depends on which community actually. We also start with the inviting 17 street artists at that time, because in the Yogyakarta itself at that time many people think that I only can see or I can only enjoy the art through the gallery. But then at that time, the street artists, they make art on the wall of the people's house. So that's then it's become also destinations. So I think it's all depends on which are we going to develop the tour itself. Yeah, but more or less I can say it is from my own perspective, because not many tour operator has this sustainability concept as their DNA. And I just can say that again, as far as it is, we start from us, then it's going. But then other than that, otherwise then it's only become the marketing itself. So yeah, that's my point of view. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's turn to this question about travel, and that obviously the question is around climate change impacts of travel, and how you promote greener, if you can promote greener ways of methods of travel. But before we delve into that, I just wanted to ask you whether your communities are all impacted by climate change, and how strongly that's being felt. So when you answer the question about travel and whether there are alternatives to carbon-intense forms of transport, whether that's something that it feels very prescient to your communities as well. Is there a volunteer to answer that first? Annika, it was addressed to you as a question. Are you able to take that one?
Yeah. I see. The climate or the Arctic is really affected by the global warming. The heating is increasing a lot faster in the Arctic than in the rest of the world, and that's really a problem. It's a problem for the whole habitat, of course, the reindeers and the animals, and also, of course, different kind of species and this kind of thing. And in our region, the steel and the mining business is the industry that really have to decrease their carbon footprint, because our region we are not even a part of the modern railway system in Sweden. We have a real old railroad. It's 100 years old, and so we have not, we're not connected with the modern railroad with the rest of rest of Sweden. And when it comes to flights, we're also lacking of direct flights to different kind of main, European destinations. So we have not so many visitors, but we want the visitors to stay longer. That's really important. Also to fly in or go by this museum-like train, and also stay longer. And when you are on site, use the public transportations, of course. So we look at Europe and say that perhaps you don't have to use this kind of internal flights in between different kind of European cities because you have alternatives. But we don't have these kind of alternatives.
Lennart, do you want to make a point?
I just want to comment because I have thought a lot about this. I mean, I'm in a business contributing to CO2 emissions by travel. But for me, as an indigenous person from an indigenous community up in the north, the big threat for our existence is the lack of knowledge. And if you don't learn anything about Sápmi in the Swedish school system, that you don't do in 2024 in Sweden today, if we're not in the media, in the good storytelling, just conflicts and things, then travel is the alternative to actually gain this knowledge. With knowledge, we can change, we can do better. So for me, I cannot reduce this question only to be about CO2 emissions in flights. Just to give you a little broader perspective.
I think that's a very powerful point. Well said. Uji or Wolfgang, did you want to make any comment on climate change and travel options?
We of course, we are fortunate because we can work on Europe. So we try to attract people from Europe, not from other countries. In the first place, of course, there are some hotels that are working with tour operators from the US, from Canada, from Australia and stuff. We are not convinced that this is the right way if you have alternatives. And we did a survey, and our guests say about 90% of our guests can imagine not to use their own car during the holiday. So that's why we're introducing this year free transport in the whole region for every guest, without exception. And 50%, 48% say they can imagine to travel with the train. So that's why we are trying to establish and reinforce our partnerships with the big carriers, the Deutsche Bahn, Trenitalia, and so on. That's all we can do.
Yeah, I think for Via so far what we do, we have a program of 3 for tour. So every tours that the guests join, especially with the vehicle, with the motorized tour. So they plan 1 trip. We work together with the local NGO also, and then we also, when we have the tour normally with the schools, they also ask to us because like the outdoor activities, then they also plan a trip. So I think that's what we can do as a tour operator, and it's also doable. Meanwhile, still like trying to offer alternative tours, walking or cycling in Yogyakarta is also doable. So that's for the climate change, I think.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's really about using alternatives as they're there, but also recognizing there aren't always alternatives. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Is there anyone who wants to make a point or ask a question from the floor? I just want to give you that opportunity because I know Slido can sometimes be quite stilted. Yeah. I think that's. Did you want to make a point? There are risks and opportunities of regenerative tourism. Are you comfortable to answer that question?
I think within this time frame, I think it's impossible.
It's quite an involved question, and that was why I didn't leap to it immediately.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you can have some time with Lennart during the break to answer that. I think that's probably a good point to end. But I wanted to say thank you to all of our panelists today. I think we've had a really interesting discussion, really hearing about some of those issues at grassroots level, at community level, and particularly the issues around preservation of Indigenous culture and representation of Indigenous voices within the tourism debate and the decision-making process, which is relevant to all our panelists here. I think hearing also, thank you for your point about Australia, and it's interesting if we note the way the dial has moved on recognition of Indigenous voices in Australia over the last only 15, 20 years, really, isn't it? Very recent. I think coming from a country without its own strong Indigenous heritage, it's just slightly different proposition in England. It's hard to understand why such valuable voices wouldn't be included in the national debate, but that's somebody who knows very little about Swedish politics. But on a global scale, I think for the reasons Lennart and the rest of the panel members outlined, it is something that we really need to include in our industry more and more, particularly as we face this biodiversity crisis, that some of those communities are best placed to help advise us. And drawing into the whole rewilding debate as well, which was something I wanted to ask you, but we're out of time. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending this session, and thank you again to the panelists.